All right, what's up, YouTube? This is BoxingWave. First off, make sure you hit that like button on your way in. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification so you'll be alerted for any new content I drop. And also follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram at BoxingWave10 if you haven't already. All right, but definitely smash that like button. All right, there's a lot that I want to discuss in this live here. Um, be on the lookout for Josh Taylor against Jose Ramirez, undisputed at 140. That breakdown will probably be done by tomorrow. I want to study a little bit more video before I record. So I'm going to do that tonight. I might even go live later this evening if I am going to watch a little bit of the previous fights between the two. But we have a big undisputed fight this weekend. It's going to be on ESPN, and I will do my live commentary like I normally do this Saturday. Okay. But before we get to that fight, I wanted to discuss everything that's been happening in the sport of boxing the last few days since the weekend. I haven't done a weekend recap yet, an official one. I know I was tweeting throughout the weekend fights, but I would like to discuss these weekend fights and some other boxing news, including Wilder and Fury 3 and all of that stuff. All right. So we'll get to all of that. Shout out to Mark Pinkerton. Shout out to Rich Franklin that's already here. What's going on? Just make sure you hit that like button again. Make sure you hit that like button on your way in. All right. So look, there's a few things I want to go over real quick before we get to Joshua and Fury and Wilder and everything. First, let's start off with talking about Michael Hunter. I've been meaning to speak on this for a few days. Michael Hunter backed out of the Philip Hrgovic fight. All right. This was supposed to be, it was really supposed to be a step up for Hrgovic. All right. Because at this point, he still hasn't fought a top fighter at heavyweight. And this was a great test for him, a dangerous fight for him. And this was another good test for Michael Hunter. Hunter has been fighting good fighters since he's been in the sport. You know, he's fought Usyk. All right. He's fought Povetkin. He fought Martin Bakole. All right. He fought Alexander Ustinov. So he's fought some good fighters already. All right, so this wasn't really a step up for him, but this was a fight that we wanted to see. Michael Hunter, I consider to be kind of like a boogeyman in a division. So it was kind of disappointing to hear that he ducked Hrgovic because, excuse the fact, this is New York City, so you hear everything that's going on outside. I was kind of disappointed when I heard that he ducked Hrgovic, but at the same time, I know this fight with Mike Wilson. He's supposed to be fighting a guy named Mike Wilson that we've never heard of. He's like a 38-year-old guy that's never really been in the ring with anyone, only has one loss. But this is a step down from Hrgovic for sure, right? There's no debating that. So I was disappointed in the news. But once I found out he was fighting on Triller underneath the Teofimo Lopez undercard, I knew this was a money grab. I'm pretty sure, and from the interview that I heard him in, I'm pretty sure it was a money grab. Michael Hunter, again, I listed some of the fighters he's fought. He hasn't gotten paid a lot of money. It's not bad money, but it's not a lot of money. And I hate to try to count his pockets, but if he's fighting on Triller, and Triller has been dishing out a lot of cash for fighters on their undercards as well, I'm pretty sure he made the move for financial reasons. All right, his fight with Hrgovic was supposed to be for an IBF, like a final eliminator. So it would have put him in a good position to fight for an IBF title at some point. But I'm thinking that's the reason. Again, I'm disappointed, but if it was a huge money grab and if he's going to get paid much more to fight Mike Wilson, who we don't care for and we don't know, over fighting Philip Hrgovic, then I understand. All right. He's not the type to duck because he's done nothing but fight good fighters. But yeah, in this situation, it is a duck. It is definitely a duck. But I'm sure it was for financial purposes. Shout out to everyone that's joining us. I am PK, T. Nicholas, Eddie Morales. We have Bruce Leroy's in the building. Make sure you hit that like button. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about the fights over the weekend. Let's start out with this. Let's start out with this Christopher Lovejoy fight against Manuel Char. Emmanuel Char haven't fought in about 3-4 years now. All right. And, you know, I guess Christopher Lovejoy is a guy that's been picking up wins, you know, fighting a bunch of bums because his resume is atrocious. Like, if you look at the people he's been beating, I think they took a similar route like they did with Wilder. You know, Wilder went many fights. You know, I think he went up to like 30 wins, 30 knockouts while literally fighting bums. And I think Christopher Lovejoy tried to do the same thing. You know, I can't remember. I think he went 19 wins, 19 knockouts or something like that. But very poor opposition. Big talker. You know, you got a big guy. He's like 6'5", 300 pounds, out from Cali. And, you know, he came in the game doing a lot of talking, a lot of hyping. You know, I did see Floyd Mayweather Sr., I believe it was a Floyd Mayweather or it was a late great Roger Mayweather, but I think it was Floyd Mayweather Sr. Someone from Floyd's camp, like really hyping him up. You know, I seen an interview a month or two ago, really hyping him up, saying he was the next big thing. He goes in there and fight Manuel Char and gets stopped in 2 rounds. And when I'm saying in 2 rounds, it wasn't a competitive 2 rounds. He was complaining to the ref, looking like he was crying in there. It was very funny. It was very embarrassing. And right away, he took to Twitter right after the fight and started calling out other people like Dave Allen. And it was just, I think the guy is just really a troll, man. You know, and this is what it is, man. I don't think Christopher Lovejoy is no different from like Jake Paul. Like, you know, I mean, he's not famous like them, but he's like a troll to me. You know, I know he's really boxing. I know he has a real professional record, but the people he's facing are like bad. Like, I think he had a guy that he fought that was like 6 wins with 50 losses like 2 fights ago. So this guy he's not like a real, you know, he's just trolling and you know, he's not a real heavyweight guy that is a threat and has real potential to me, you know. And try to catch Manuel Char while he was inactive. That would have been his first name that you know, to have on his record. But you trying to catch the man as he's coming off a long layoff, and it didn't work out for him, you know. So it was pretty funny and everything, but terrible performance, terrible. I mean, this dude looked bad. I think he said something with his shoulder. He had an injury with his shoulder. I seen an interview, a post-fight interview, but I don't know, man. Christopher Lovejoy, I hope that's the end we see with him, you know, because outside of social media talking and interviews, I really don't see any real potential there with him. You know, it was a funny fight, and that's that. Let's talk about Joshua Buatsi. He had a crazy knockout over Dos Santos over the weekend. Joshua's fighting at 175 right now, undefeated, and he looks good. Devastating knockout. I was glad to see Dos Santos okay, but Dos Santos never really seemed much of a threat to him. You know, he had to run a lot and really avoid Buatsi the entire fight. But the kid looks good. And, you know, I mean, I don't think he's championship level, but he should be fighting a guy like maybe a little below that at this point at 175. Maybe a guy that used to be good, like a Sergey Kovalev, you know. That would be a great step up for him, you know. But you know, I basically just wrote down, I have a little list here that that I wrote down of people that I would be interested in seeing Joshua Buatsi fight. All right. Somewhere around this level of fighters. You have Lyndon Arthur, who recently beat Anthony Yard. You also got Anthony Yard. All right. That would be a good fight. Maxim Vlasov would be a good fight. Ming Fanlong would be a good fight. Gilberto Ramirez, who I wouldn't see. I see that as being a little bit too much of a step up because Ramirez is a former champion at 168. Still looking for his title shot at 175 soon. So I can't see that fight happening. That might be a little bit too far ahead. But Callum Johnson is another guy. Jesse Hart is another good test for him. And Igor Mikulkin, all right? You know, a guy that Kovalev beat a few years back. So there's some good names out there. All right, I can go on and go on. Sullivan Barrera, who's actually scheduled to fight Gilberto Ramirez, would have been a good test for him too. So these are all step-up fights. I like all of those guys. Eddie Morales just said him versus Alvarez, Alida Alvarez. You know, I'm not sure, you know, because Alvarez, I haven't seen him since he lost to Joe Smith Jr. So maybe that could be too much of a step up because I don't know, you know, Alvarez may not be done yet, you know. I mean, this is a guy that did beat Sergey Kovalev at one point. So when Kovalev was a little fresher and on top of that. So I like the Callum Johnson. Noah George says Callum Johnson. I like the Callum Johnsons. I like Lyndon Arthur. I like Anthony Yard. You know, Meng Fanlong is a good fight. Jesse Hart, who hasn't really proven anything yet at 175, that would be a good fight. So all of those are good fights to me, you know. So, but good knockout, crazy knockout. You know, I'm glad the guy was okay because it was a devastating. It was a very, very violent right hand, and I believe he also landing another shot to Dos Santos while he was going down. Like he had hit him and he backed up like, oh, he didn't mean to do it, you know. So we'll see. Youssef says Buatsi looks small at 175. His body frame compared to the Kovalev's yards, maybe he's not done growing. It's possible. He does look kind of slim. If you watch the fight without knowing what weight division they're in, you would think that it's a 160 168 at the most fight, you know. Joshua does look kind of small, and Dos Santos did too. You know, they're not some of the bigger guys at 175. So I definitely agree with that comment. All right. So let's move on. Let's talk about 122. All right. The 122 division is on fire and it's starting to get more exposure. And I love it because you got a lot of guys there and you got a lot of guys that are still fresh. You know, a lot of guys that are fresh, they're young still. You know, they don't have a lot of losses. You know, even with the guys that did lose, all of them are still fresh. If we're talking about the top 10 guys or so around there, they're all fresh. They're all very good. And I look forward to possibly having an undisputed fight by 2022. All right, so over the weekend, we got a Showtime card, which was a very, very good card. It was a 3-fight card, and all fights were action-packed for sure. But in that card, we had Daniel Roman, who fought Espinoza. Very good fight, very dangerous fight. Daniel Roman, who he lost to Akhmadaliev, all right? He was he was unified champion at 122 and lost the titles to Akhmadaliev in a very, very close fight. Good good boxing, very good boxing by both in that fight. Roman did come back and he did fight Payano. All right, so he picked up a decision against Payano, who is a very credible fighter, at 122. Very good fighter at 122, 118. He's been taking his share of losses lately, but very good fight. So Daniel Roman, excuse the background, he came back, picked up a very, very good win against a really, really tough Espinoza, who came out firing. Espinoza, known to be a big puncher, very explosive, came hard at Daniel Roman in those first 2, 3, 4 rounds. All right, Roman started to pick him apart, though. All right, slowed down the pace a little bit, outboxed him, made every punch count, great counters, body punching. Well, you know what? Let me not say great body punching, because I think if Daniel really attacked the body a little bit more, I think he probably could have gotten Espinoza out of there, because there was a point where I thought the fight could have been stopped. Espinoza was taking a lot of punishment the last 3, maybe 4 rounds in that fight. Very good win. And, even though Danny lost to Akhmadaliev, he still looks like he might be one of the best fighters in the division still. He looks great. He looks great. You got Stephen Fulton, who's champion as well. He just recently beat Angelo Leo, all right, which was one of the best fights of the year so far, in my opinion. Angelo Leo, even though he lost to Stephen Fulton, he still he might still be one of the best fighters in the division too. Now we haven't seen him return since that loss, but 122, I mean, Leo is still a top fighter. Roman is still a top fighter, and then you got a few guys, like you got Rais Alim. You still have him out there. Neri lost to Brandon Figueroa, and I'll speak on that a little bit too, but you got a lot of talent at 122. And the thing is, even the guys that lost recently are still very, very tough. So this is a great division. And this is a division that we may possibly get an undisputed champion. So someone brought up Michael Collins. Michael Collins also a little bit not on that level yet. We still got to see a little bit more. But time will come. His time will come. Let me read some of the comments here. Fire and more exposure from 122 explosive fights right in the ring of the bell. Canelo fights and other weight fights should start like that. Well, I don't want to compare to Canelo. I get you where you were going with that, but I think the division overall, these guys are doing exactly what they need to do. These are the best fighting the best. All of these guys are good that I just named. All of them. Brandon, Neri, all of these guys are good. I think right now is actually becoming a division favorite with some fans, because I've read some comments that this is starting to become one of their favorite divisions. Because if you look at 115, you got 118, you got guys with bigger names in those two divisions. If we're talking the smaller divisions, those are, very popular compared to 122. You also, you got 126 where no one is. 126 is probably my least favorite division right now. I mean, you got no one that's actually unifying anything there. It's nothing really going on there. You have to really go to 130 and 135 to see some sort of action. All right. Noah says Roman's win over Payano wasn't super convincing. It wasn't a good win. It was just okay. But I think this one was a lot more convincing than the Payano win. Okay. It was his first fight back after a loss, but I was much more impressed with Danny in this fight here, in my opinion. All right. So yeah, I agree with you, but I like this win. I thought this win was good. I thought the fight was good. And let's move on. All right. So let's talk about Luis Neri and Brandon Figueroa. And I had some time to think about it. Actually watched some of the fight again. yesterday. This is how I feel. At first, I thought that Neri is just maybe too small. You know, he's had only one fight since moving up. Didn't really look convincing in that first fight. He had a 122. And then he goes to fight Brandon Figueroa, who is one of the biggest fighters at 122 and probably the most durable fighter at 122. You know, we know how him and his brother Omar gets down. You know, Neri was boxing well. He landed some hard shots. He's known to have power at 118. All right. But it just wasn't enough. He was doing well early. In the last 2, maybe 3 rounds of the fight, before it was stopped, you saw some of the steam coming off of his punches. You know, it just didn't have the effect. And I think what Neri was trying to do, and he left Eddie Reynoso and went back to his old trainer. He wanted to be a little bit more aggressive. He said that he didn't want to be as defensive in this fight. And that might have been somewhat of a mistake. All right. He was still able to hold his own, and it was a good fight. The exchanges were good. And I thought he was winning in most of the exchanges, but he wasn't pacing himself well. At least that's what I saw. I think Neri started going too hard. I think he was trying too hard to get the knockout and try to outpunch Brandon, you know, instead of making every shot count. The thing is, he tried to move at times, right? There's certain rounds where he tried to move and box, but Brandon is too quick on his feet. He was too good at cutting off the ring, and he stayed on Neri's ass the entire fight. You know, I just think Neri continuously outpunched himself. And then once those punches didn't sting, it was over. You know, he was just throwing too many punches, and he paid for it. He paid for it, you know? So I think that's part of the reason on why he didn't win this fight. All right. Give me 1 second. Let me plug something. Just realized that my laptop here wasn't being charged. Thank God I noticed it. All right. So again, Neri, I think, was really out punch. I think he tired himself out while trying to keep up with Figueroa. You know, I think the game plan, I think he could have won the fight. I think it's possible he could have won the fight, but he couldn't hurt Brandon. That's one thing. He really couldn't hurt Brandon. And the second thing is, I think he punched himself out in some of those rounds. You know, he didn't pace himself right. I think he was just really trying to bang with Brandon. And Brandon took the shots, and Brandon returned them. And at some point, Brandon was even outboxing him. You know, he was landing the cleaner shots the last 3 rounds, you know, in my opinion. I think the first, I forgot how many rounds the fight went. I think it went 7 rounds. But the first 4 rounds or so, I like Neri. You know, I like what Neri was doing. But it could be because of size. It could be, you know, it could be. Maybe Neri goes back to 118. But I want to see a little bit more before he goes back down to 118. I would like to see Neri fight another top fighter at 122 first. And I say that because Brandon Figueroa, to me, is a wild card. If you look at all of these other guys, you got Neri, you got Fulton, you got, you know, Roman, you got Akhmadaliev, you got Aleem, you got all these guys, right? And if you look at the majority, a lot of these guys are southpaw. Some of them box really well. You know, you got Figueroa, who's kind of like the wild card that can make anybody look bad, because he's not like the rest of these fighters. You know, he's a guy, he's a straight pressure fighter. He is a bully in there. You know, he's the Sean Porter at 122. So Brandon Figueroa, losing to him doesn't prove that you don't belong in the division. Now, I expected, I didn't do a breakdown, but I expected, well, let me not say I wanted. I predicted Neri to win. I didn't do a video, but I'm telling you guys, I predicted Neri to win. I thought Neri was going to be able to outbox him and beat him on the inside, and I was completely wrong. All right. He was winning, but it wasn't enough. The thing is, Brandon is one of those guys that can throw a good boxer off because of his style and his pressure and his volume. So I think when Fulton fights Figueroa, and that's going to be a unification match later this year, I think Steven is going to look at some of these things. Steven is the bigger guy. Steven is not a KO artist. All right, but I think he is first of all, he's the bigger fighter. He's a bigger fighter than Neri. He's coming off of his career best win against Angelo Leo, who is also a pressure fighter that bangs. And Stephen Fulton, the thing what I liked about Fulton is not only did Fulton outbox Leo in that fight, but Fulton also banged with him. You know, he stayed in the pocket many times in that fight. And at points, it was a phone booth fight. He proved in that fight that he can handle that type of fight. He can box, but he can also fight a real physical fight. He didn't allow Leo to get, to bully him. You know what I'm saying? So it was a very, very, very good performance. Shout out to everyone that's coming in the building. Shout out to my bro, Captain Crochet. What's good? Shout out to everyone. Make sure you guys all hit that like button. But we are talking 122 right now, and 122 is starting to really become a favorite. And depending on the winner of Fulton and Figueroa, and you know what? I respect Figueroa, and I give him a lot of credit for winning that fight. I give him a lot of credit, because when he had to step up, he stepped up. He did what he had to do. It was a very, very impressive win to me. Good stoppage, good body shot. I like what he was doing. He was able to weather the storm from Neri early, and Neri crumbled at the end of the day, So good, impressive win with Brandon. I can't wait to see him and Stephen Fulton fight. I still am leaning towards Stephen Fulton, but I'm not completely counting Brandon out. I actually think a lot more highly of him now after he beat Neri. Even though Neri just moved up and everything, I was still impressed because he was able to take a lot of Neri's power, big shots, and stop him. He did what he was supposed to do, even though most of us thought Neri was going to win. All right, so salute to Brandon Figueroa. Great fight. Salute to Neri. I do want to see him fight again at 122 before considering moving back down. Salute to Danny Roman as well. It was a very good performance. I like that fight over the Payano performance. And I can't wait to look and see what he can do against someone. I know he wants the winner of that fight from that night as well. But we already know that Brandon Figueroa and Stephen Fulton are going to fight each other next. All right. But there's other options out there for Danny Roman. Again, there's Aleem out there. There's Angelo Leo out there. Maybe you could do a rematch with Akhmadaliev. That would be a good fight because that was a very close fight. It was a very, very close fight. Very competitive fight. All right. So yeah, so we'll get back to that division. Shout out, make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. And let's move on. All right. So look, people that's coming in asking me for Ramirez and Taylor, the breakdown tomorrow. You would get that breakdown tomorrow. I wanted to just discuss some of the other things that's going on before moving on to that fight, especially with the weekend recap. I definitely wanted to speak on 122. I had to, because that division is popping and it's starting to become one of my favorite divisions, because now you got guys that are really talented, unifying and giving us good excitement in these fights. All right, so now let's move on with the Joshua Wilder Fury situation. Last night, I'm sure most of you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I did a video of discussing Deontay Wilder winning the arbitration dispute against Tyson Fury as far as the trilogy, the third fight. All right. So if you don't know already, you know this there was supposed to be a third fight last year. All right. When Fury beat Wilder in a rematch, they were going to have a third fight. But because of the pandemic, things got delayed and contract expired. So we didn't get to fight. Wilder went for arbitration, which means it's a private thing, not a court-related thing, but it's just a private agreement to come some kind of, fix this dispute between the two. And basically Wilder won. All right, that's the news of yesterday. And now Fury's been ordered to defend his title, the WBC title, against Wilder in the third fight, like they were supposed to. All right. Yesterday, I pretty much told you guys, and I've always said this, and I've always had the same stance. I want undisputed more than anything. I don't care who the champions are. All right. Yeah, there's certain fights that I prefer over others. All right. As a fan, I have my own biases because I'm a boxing fan as well. But I want undisputed more than anything, because undisputed tells me that this guy right here is legitimately the best fighter in that division. All right. So I've always wanted that, and that's always been my stance. So yes, I want that. I wanted Fury to fight AJ because Fury has a belt and then AJ has 3. So I wanted it. I know there's mandatories out there. You got guys like Usyk who moved up, who was undisputed in cruiserweight. There's people that want to see that fight. I want to see it too. But the priority was Joshua and Fury. This situation comes and it kind of blindsided everyone, because just the day before, Fury said that the fight is done for August 14th. We've been hearing news from Eddie saying we're trying to get the venue, trying to figure out the financial situation with the Saudis, who's paying for the fight, all of that stuff. It's been a long road. We've heard a lot of interviews, a lot of things said by Tyson Fury that made me feel like the fight wasn't really going to happen. I didn't believe the fight was going to happen from jump, because I just couldn't see Tyson Fury being inactive for a year and a half before fighting Anthony Joshua. That's the way I always saw it. Just didn't see it. I didn't see it happening next. But I wanted it to happen next, But I've been kind of waiting. Like, what are they going to do? Are they really going to fight each other, or are they just talking? They building up something that might not happen. But the one thing that I didn't think would stop this fight was arbitration. Because according to Bob and Team Fury, this didn't seem like it would be an issue. I've heard Fury say he would never, ever give Wilder another opportunity. For some of the things he said, I thought we all moved on. I thought the contract expired. But one thing that always made me suspicious is why Fury has not fought since the Wilder fight. It only made sense for Fury to have some sort of, stay busy fight. And that was the one thing that I always questioned. It's like, what's up with this guy? Like, how come he didn't fight Caballero in December or fight anyone in December? That was the one thing that I always questioned. And I said, it made me think, like, is it because of this arbitration thing? Then I remember maybe like a month and a half ago, there was some rumors coming around saying that Fury was going to fight Deontay Wilder. This is not the first time we've heard this in the past 5-6 months, that he was going to fight Wilder again because they couldn't get it together with Joshua. We've been hearing different things from each camp for the last 5-6 months. You know? So it made me feel like, what's going on with this fight? And it's mainly coming from Fury's side, because Fury, AJ sitting back, he's just trying to get the fight going. You know, we see him in videos training, preparing, getting everything going. Then you have Eddie, who's been doing these interviews, pushing us further along, like, hey, we're trying to get this venue, we're trying to get the date, we're trying to set everything with the money right, we're trying to get contracts signed. But when it comes to Bob and Frank and Fury, they're always flip-flopping. They've always been flip-flopping. Never been really sure. Shout out to Yusef Silla. Thank you for the donation. Does Fury have the option of dropping his belt and fight AJ? I know it wouldn't be this undisputed with one belt missing. But for most fans, including myself, the winner would be undisputed unofficially. I'm not sure. And that's a great question. I am not sure. All right. But what I do know is that if Fury were to drop the belt, it doesn't belong to Wilder. It doesn't belong to Wilder. It would belong to Dillian Whyte, or at least Dillian Whyte would have to fight for that title against Wilder, who's the number one. But Dillian Whyte is already the interim champion with the WBC. So if Fury just says, you know what, I'm going to fight AJ, but I'm dumping the belt, I'm not sure if he has to do it. Now, what do I think? I think if you were to drop the belt and say, you know what, I'm going to fight AJ, but I don't have the belt anymore. You can have it. You can do whatever you want. I'm just not fighting Deontay Wilder. Can he still be sued by Wilder? I don't know. That I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. So that's the one question I can't answer. I have no idea how that situation would play out. But I thought about it, right? And the thing is, I don't think that it would happen in that scenario, because Joshua wants that belt. He wants that belt. Yeah, does he want to fight Tyson Fury? Absolutely. But are you going to risk fighting Fury, getting stripped with the IBF, or paying step aside? No, it'll be too much trouble. You're going to pay step aside to fight someone that doesn't even have a belt? It wouldn't make sense at that point. It wouldn't even make sense at that point. You know, so this is what I feel. And this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't care. This is how I feel. I feel, as much as I want undisputed, because I really do, if I'm being realistic here, Tyson Fury is about the money. He wants to get paid, right? I can't see Tyson Fury giving a huge portion of his purse to Deontay Wilder to not fight him. You know, I just can't see it happening. So I think Fury should fight him. Go fight Deontay Wilder for a third time. Joshua, do your mandatory. Go fight Usyk. You guys fight each other at the end of the year. So there'll be no problems. Fury already beat. Well, Wilder has not beaten Tyson Fury once yet. They had a draw, and then he was stopped. So if we want to clean up this whole mess, because all 2020, let's be honest here, 2020 was all about Glovegate. It was about Mark Breland spiking his juice or water. We went a whole year. Well, not we, because I barely made content about that. You guys went a whole year saying that Wilder was cheated. So if he was cheated, right, let him have the opportunity to redeem himself. Because one thing I'm not here for is any more excuses. If Wilder loses again, there's nothing else you can say. But if Wilder wins, right, then let him be the one to go fight the winner of AJ and Usyk. I care about undisputed. So whoever comes into place, I want to see AJ versus Wilder. I want to see AJ versus Fury. I don't care as long as that person is undisputed. The undisputed is the priority, right? But I don't want it to be messy. I don't want it to be messy. I don't want anybody to be obligated. Now, if they find a way to pull this off while everybody stays happy and they're able to make this undisputed fight, because I heard Eddie Hearn this morning say that I'm giving these guys a week. If they don't figure it out, if they don't sort it out, we're going to move on and we're going to fight Usyk. I see that happening. Once I heard him say that, I said a week? These guys are not going to figure this out within a week. Maybe I'm wrong, but who knows, man? The way boxing works, I don't really believe Joshua and Fury are going to fight each other. You know? So, let me just read some of the comments here. So, yeah, listen. I just want things to be clean and straight. I am not mad at Fury versus Wilder 3. All right? I want Fury and Joshua more. But I'm not mad at Fury versus Wilder 3. Fight. And we'll end all this talk about who cheated. Because one thing I will know is that Mark Breland won't be there to spike your water. Plus, we can make sure we do extra checks on those gloves. All right? We could check as many. You could have Wilder standing right next to him while we could do whatever we need to do in order to make sure there's no cheating involved here. That's all I want. That's why I'm not mad at a third fight. You know? Do I really want to see it like that? Not really, but if this is what it takes to end that whole 2020 thing that y'all was on here doing, then cool. I'm cool with that. I'm good with that. So let's get that third fight. I don't want there to be step aside. Nah. No step aside. You want arbitration? You take the fight because you wanted an opportunity to fight for a title that was stolen from you, right? So now you have the opportunity. Don't take no step aside money. Go fight for that title that you claim that was stolen from you. And his fans should want the same thing. His diehard fans, his street team, they should want the same thing. It's not about the money. It's about honor. It's about pride. You got cheated by Tyson Fury. You got cheated because of Mark Breland. You should want the fight. No step aside money. I want to be, no, these guys shouldn't be fighting for my, if I'm talking about, I'm talking from a Deontay Wilder's standpoint. As a fan, I want undisputed. I hope you guys are keeping up with me. As a fan, I want undisputed. But if you're Team Wilder and you're Team Wilder, you're part of his street team, you should want the third fight, right? Why would you want to step aside? Wilder would take the step aside and fight who? Nah, we don't want to step aside. We want you to be better in the third fight against Fury because you claim that you weren't yourself. Joshua, he could go and fight Usyk. That's his mandatory. He fought Pulev, another mandatory. So clean your mandatories up. So when the next fight comes along, whether it's Fury or Wilder, you guys work it out. Now, I know some of you guys going to say, well, what if Wilder and let's just say this. Let's say Wilder beats Fury in the third fight, all right? Wilder beats Fury in the third fight. And Joshua beats Usyk. Will Joshua against Wilder actually happen? Because it was once upon a time, those were the two that held titles in the division, and the fight didn't go down. So would it go down now? I think it would have a better chance of going down now than it did before, because there's a lot more money in the pot for both. You want to bring up the 50 million email me in one day thing, bring it up. If you're going to bring up the 100 million that DAZN offer Wilder, bring it up. But whatever money you going to bring up from what happened in the past, they have a lot more money to play with right now. Wilder has made a lot more since then. Joshua's made a lot more since then. We're not talking $10, $12 million no more. And now Wilder actually have a name on his resume that he can say, well, I want 50-50. And now the networks will have a reason to want to work together to make the fight happen like they did with Floyd. You know why? Because it would be a bigger fight. If Wilder beats Fury in the third fight and Joshua is still, not undefeated, but he beats Usyk, and he was supposed to fight Fury, it won't be the biggest British fight in the world or in the history. Maybe not the biggest British fight because, Fury against Joshua would have been a bigger fight for the Brits. But if you're looking for a big fight for the Brits and a big fight for America, Wilder and Joshua it is. So I think it would be easier to make the fight now than it was a few years ago. Now, I could be wrong, but I was wrong. I mean, a lot of us was wrong about Fury. Well, not us, because I wasn't involved with that. I know there was a lot of people out there talking about this Joshua and Fury fight like it was set in stone. That's on them. But to me, this fight, well, it could still happen. We're still waiting. But if it doesn't happen, these are the options. All right. So that's how I feel about that, man. I really don't have anything else to say. At this point, it's just a waiting game. And I think that we're not going to wait too long, because I think certain people, these guys putting a lot of work and effort in trying to get this fight with Fury and Joshua going. But why try to put all that effort into it when you know that this arbitration thing is still ongoing? It hasn't been settled yet. Now it's settled and Wilder won. Me personally, I don't want no step aside. I think the step aside is corny. Yeah, I see you, TMT. To be honest, I saw the news about August 14th by Fury. I saw that, and the first thing that came to my head was to do a video, because at that point, that was the only time that I actually believed and had some kind of hope that the fight was actually going to happen. That was the first time, just a few days ago. That was the first time in the past 6 months that I said, holy shit, I think this fight is really going to go down. Right? And then what happened the very next day? Arbitration came back. Wilder wins. Fight is ordered. What, by September? Fight is ordered. It's like, it's weird to me that this guy finally came out and supported the fight, like really supported the fight. And then the very next day, this ruling comes back. Very disappointing, but it is boxing at the end of the day, and boxing is usually disappointed. This is why you have Triller and you got Jake Paul and Mayweather and all these guys making it look like a clown show, because it is. Because the real fighters aren't fighting each other. We talking about real fighters. Most of them ain't fighting each other. At least the popular ones, most of them are not fighting each other. You know? It is what it is, man. Very disappointing. Todd Boyd, thank you for the donation. What happens next for Wilder if he loses again? I think if Wilder loses again to Fury, he can just ride off to the sunset, man. He's a little older than the rest of these guys. He's already in his mid-30s. So, I think if he loses to Fury again, I think the Andy Ruiz fight would still be a good pay-per-view fight. You know, they would still make money off of that. You know, I think Wilder, if he stays, get a tune-up, have a tune-up with someone, win, look impressive, and then go on to fight Andy Ruiz. Keep it PBC. Andy Ruiz didn't look too impressive against Areola, but, you know, he has a name. Wilder has a name. You know, I said to you guys in a recent video that I did when I was talking top 10 most desired fights for me, I told you guys that I always still want to see Wilder against AJ. I will always love to see that fight. Whenever it would happen, it will always be a fight that I want to see. That doesn't go away if you don't have a title. It's just certain fights I just want to see. It doesn't matter if whatever, you know. Of course, I would love to see it at a time where both fighters are fresh and undefeated. You know, I wanted to see it before when they were both undefeated, but we didn't get it. Doesn't mean I don't want to see the fight. But I think realistically, if Wilder is to lose again, he can still fight Andy Ruiz for a big fight. That would be a big fight still, you know. It won't be as big, obviously, but it'll be something worth buying on pay-per-view. I'm sure they'll still be able to do decent numbers. All right. Still be doing decent number. Wilder could come back, get a good fight in, and prepare for Ruiz. And Ruiz, you know, he can still get his fights in. You know what I'm saying? Like, these fights can still happen, even if these guys lose. Like, you know, this fight can still happen. Or he could say, well, you know what? If he doesn't want to fight anymore, he can ride off to the sunset and retire. It's really totally up to him. But the options will still be there. You know? I think that's a new age of like fight fans. Like, we feel like if fighters lose, they ride so much on. I think a lot of fighters, and I think, you know, it has a lot to do with Mayweather and being undefeated. But I think a lot of fights, people ride on a lot of fighters on one big fight. And they think once a fighter loses that fight, that they're useless at this point, you know? And it's double standards, because that same standard doesn't fit for everybody. There's a lot of great fighters that lose all the time. But I think the standard comes with the more popular fighters that have like an extreme following, you know, like Canelo, Manny Pacquiao, Errol Spence, Terrence Bud Crawford, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. You know, there's like 10 fighters or a little bit more that have extreme fans, right? Fanboys, where they feel like everything is riding on this one fight. So when they actually have the fight and they lose, it's like, he should retire. He's done. So that is a problem, but it's a new age of boxing, but it's a new age of fans too. You know, some fans here don't listen. I've been doing these videos for a long time, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of fans that they only comment when it's only a specific boxer. They don't watch the sport. And that's fine. Like, listen, you gotta like what you like, you know? I'm a Knicks fan. I usually watch basketball, normally when the Knicks are playing, you know? And then I'll pay attention to some other teams, you know, but that's just how it is. Like, I watch basketball, but I put a lot of attention into the Knicks. You know, like if I'm watching baseball, like I'm a very, very casual baseball fan, right? I watch a game here and there. But if I do watch baseball, I'm watching the Yankees most likely. And that's it. Now, I might be a little familiar with what's going on with other teams, but that's just how it is. So when it comes to boxing, it's the same thing. A lot of guys just watch specific fighters that they're aware of, you know? So yeah, that's my stance. I do want Undisputed. Again, gonna close this out. I do want Undisputed. But if we're not gonna get the Undisputed fight, Wilder and Fury should fight for a third time. I do not like the idea of at all of taking step aside. And if you're a Wilder supporter, you should want the same thing. That's a cop-out. You don't fight that hard, especially you YouTubers that were a part of that movement last year. You guys are the reason behind this arbitration. You should be giving yourself credit. For the people that were making all of these videos with Glovegate and egg weights and horseshoes and all of this stuff that came out, on top of the whole spike in water thing, all of that was made to force a third fight. So for you to finally have the opportunity to fight for a third time, and for you to just take the money and go, what was it all for? It doesn't make sense. And I can't respect someone that is pushing for Wilder to just take the money and go. If you were screaming foul play all last year, I can't respect your views on that. So if the fight doesn't happen, it'll be pretty messed up if this guy just takes the money and don't fight. He probably will take the step aside money, but I have no idea. We'll see. You know, I want him to take the fight if these two don't fight Undisputed. All right. I think I cover everything. All right. So look, Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez week prediction. The breakdown will be out by tomorrow. I'll probably do it either later this evening or tomorrow. I will put it out tomorrow morning. The very latest. All right. Cleon. I don't know how much the step aside money is yet. I'm not sure. All right. I know the purses are supposed to be like 150 million split. So I don't know how much of that is coming out of Tyson Fury's pocket, but I bet you it will be enough. It'll be more. It'll be too much. That's not money you want to give up. I don't think that there's going to be. I think Fury and Wilder will fight for a third time. You know, unless the Prince of Saudi Arabia gives Wilder, hey, shut up, take this amount, keep it moving. You know, we'll see. All right. So, yeah, Taylor against Ramirez breakdown tomorrow. Thank you for you guys. If you haven't already, make sure you smash that like button real quick. Thank you for the people that donated to the channel. There's also, you can also donate. I have my donation information on the description, my Cash App, the Venmo. That's always an option as well if you do want to donate to the channel. And I'll see you guys on the next one. All right. It was a good live chat. Make sure you guys definitely check out 122 Division. Keep your eye on it. Very, very good fighters, a lot of talent there. And that's it. Right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.